On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we'll be bringing in JD Young, the host of Locked On San Jose Sharks. We'll be discussing the matchup between the Panthers and the Sharks in their final matchup of the season, and the Panthers looking for their first 3-game winning streak of the season.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers and Locked On San Jose Sharks podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers and Locked On San Jose Sharks podcast your first listen of the day. For everybody on the San Jose Sharks feed, let me introduce myself. My name is Armando Velez, the host of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. And thankful to be doing yet another crossover edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Sharks with the host of Locked On Sharks and former Florida resident and Miami Dolphins fan, JD Young. JD, great to be doing this again.
Yes, it's always a treat when our teams get to play each other. One, because your team always kind of just smacks the crap out of the Sharks, but two, it's just fun to talk about Florida sports in general, and our love of the Dolphins. So yes, it's always a good time.
Yes, and you can follow JD Young at MyFryHole on Twitter as well. And don't forget that this episode, this crossover of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Sharks is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more with FanDuel. And yes, JD, the connection with the Griers that you happen to be a fan of both teams, and of course the Dolphins. They hired a new D coordinator in Vic Fangio, so very exciting time for this region. A team that took a step back defensively. Maybe
I have more than one step back defensively, but
yeah, trying to be nice, especially with all the injuries and all that stuff that happened this year. Brandon Jones, Nick Needham, you name it. But let's talk about this matchup. This is what the listeners came here to listen for Panthers Sharks, and we know what the writing is on the wall for San Jose, what they're coming in for. Of course, Mike Grier, which when I was down in South Florida for All-Star Weekend, the United by Hockey truck had a picture of Mike Grier about being the first Black GM in NHL history. So I think that it was like in a little corner. I sent that to you over a text message the other day.
Yes. So, I did notice it was like in the little corner.
So pretty cool. So I have a few over unders questions for you just to get right started at the for this crossover. Over under for you at the times that you look at Tankathon in a week. 2.5.
Over or easy. Under? Over easy every day. Every day. Every day. Multiple times a day. Sometimes I'll look at it before the games and after the games to see where the movement. So like you could have put the number at like 20 and it's probably still pushing over.
Man, I was a little too nice when trying to ask for those odds. So yeah, I look at Tankathon for different reasons. For the Montreal pick that Florida sends to them, and right now 0% chance at it being number one overall, but still a 2.5% chance finishing in the lottery. The next one for you, over under, and the reason why this one is so low is because of what a lot of people think about a possible trade. Erik Karlsson, over under 4.5% chance that Erik Karlsson gets traded at the trade deadline.
I'm going to go 0% chance that Erik Karlsson gets traded at the deadline. I just think there's too many obstacles. And the big thing is he has a no movement clause. So if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to go anywhere. But I think there's, as well as Erik Karlsson's playing, Erik Karlsson has 69 points this season.
Nice.
Very nice. 69 points so far this season in 52 games. He has 52 assists, 17 goals. Could tie Joe Thornton's assist record for the franchise. He needs 40 assists in the last 30 games. As great as he's been playing this year, this doesn't wash out what we've seen from Erik Karlsson the last 3 years, right? Of being injured, being overpaid, quite honestly, and just not being the same Erik Karlsson. And I don't know what GM or team is able to fit in Erik Karlsson's $11.5 million for the next 4 seasons after this. It's not like he's an expiring contract or even has a year left. It's 4 more years after this of Erik Karlsson at $11.5 million. Pierre LeBrun thinks that if this trade happens, it's going to be a summertime trade where you can have a little bit more flexibility in the offseason. You can kind of make some more moves, reshape your roster that way. I don't see Erik Karlsson being traded at the deadline just because I think there's just too many obstacles and too many pieces you have to try to figure out in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, and that's why I set the over-under very low, because that's the same thing that I've been hearing. It's a really hard contract with a lot of term left on it, and there's still also a lot of term on other players around the San Jose Shark, like Vlasic and Couture on the team. Vlasic's no move clause because of modified no trade clause next year, but you're thinking about someone who's in his mid-30s at the moment as well, so that's going to be another contract to move as well.
He's played much better this season, but he's still not worth his $7 million. Like if you were paying Vlasic like $3 million, we would not be having this conversation type of thing. But it's just what you're paying for past performance, and he's been bad for the past couple of years. But yeah, Vlasic, he's you just kind of hold your nose up when you look at the contract now.
Yeah, and even and it's crazy because even for the Sharks, even if this flat cap stays and rises only to 83.5, $17 million in cap space for the Sharks at the moment, and also the big elephant in the room as well is a possible trade of Timo Meier, who's going to be an expiring deal. He has 11 more goals than the next best.
He's
on
RFA. So he's
RFA, excuse me.
Yeah, so he has an RFA. He has an RFA. If the Sharks wanted to keep him next year and just give him his qualifying offer, it's a $10 million qualifying offer. So most likely he's going to sign a long-term extension if it's with the Sharks, or if he gets traded at the trade deadline and signs a new 8-year deal with whatever team, like we just saw with Bo Horvat with the Islanders, right, where he signed an 8-year deal before you even play a game with them, type of situation. But if the Sharks really, really want to drag this out, they could not trade him, sign him to his 1-year, $10 million qualifying offer, and then redo this whole thing again next year. But I think we're going to have push comes to shove at the trade deadline, and we'll figure out Timo Meier's future then.
Yeah, and if you don't end up trading him in the trade deadline, it kind of sounds like a Matthew Tkachuk situation in Calgary, where he was an RFA before getting traded, and it's like I would have been only signed a 1-year deal in Calgary and then probably would have moved on. So it kind of sounds like the same situation for Timo Meier over there in San Jose. And it's funny because we know that because you are so plugged in as well to the Barracuda as well, we know the future is William Eklund and Thomas Bordeleau. How close are they to making be part of the full-time roster for the Sharks?
I think this year, this is something we haven't really seen from San Jose, being very, very patient with their prospects, right? Old GM Doug Wilson, he would kind of, William Eklund made the team last year coming out of training camp, right? Before he was sent back to Sweden. Thomas Bordeleau played 3 games in the AHL before the Sharks signed him to his ELC to get him to play on the Sharks last year, and he played 8 games with the Sharks. But we are seeing Mike Grier is a much more patient man than what we have seen before, and I think they will both get some NHL games at some point this year, because I think you want to kind of reward these guys for their success, right? And see, okay, like, what have you learned? But I don't think they're going to be full-time players until next year, to be honest. I think Mike Grier has really come out and wanted to, with the Barracuda, establish a culture of winning down there and letting these young guys kind of marinate and learn how to win and learn how to play winning hockey down there. And the Barracuda are kind of fighting for a playoff spot in the Pacific Division, the AHL right now. But I mean, Mike Grier has done a lot of work to try to kind of bolster up this AHL team by signing or trading for veteran players who can help them win now. So, again, I think he wants to have these guys learn how to win, and we're seeing the strides that they're making. Eklund is on a 7-game point streak right now. Currently, you can kind of see the confidence growing of him being, every time he steps on the ice, he knows I'm the best player out here, and he's starting to play like that. And as much as I want to watch William Eklund in the NHL, he will get there. I'm trying to be patient, but William Eklund is, I think it's going to be next year where they're going to be given a real opportunity to win their NHL jobs. So,
and definitely, we're starting to kind of see starting next year for the Sharks as the youth movement. Of course, we spoke about some of the veterans who still have a whole bunch of term. It sounds like a little bit of LA Kings with their core that won some championships, and now you're making room for the younger guys. So it kind of sounds very similar to what another California team is doing. But we're going to move on to the segment number 2, where we're going to flip the script and JD ask me some Florida Panthers related questions. But first, JD, tell us about FanDuel.
So got to mention our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, if you don't know, it's Super Bowl week, right? And the only app you need for your Super Bowl party is at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. So download the FanDuel app now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You get to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. And FanDuel, you bet on everything from money line to point spread, so even score a touchdown. I love a Travis Kelce touchdown. I love a Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown. It just both feel right to me in this game. So FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Back on this second segment here of this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and the Locked On San Jose Sharks podcast. And flipping the script over to you, JD.
Okay. The Panthers are in a kind of a weird spot, right? Where they're kind of all in, but they're not good enough right now, I guess, to kind of compete with the big names, right? You kind of went all in last year. They have literally no picks to trade. So what are they going to do at the trade deadline? Is it just sit tight and what is the Panthers' plan right now, I guess, for the rest of the season?
Right now they're stuck in LTIR. Right now their total cap is $87 million, just over. And right now they're saving $3.1 million in cap space for a possible Anthony Duclair return, which could happen at any time. And we got word about when he's going to return. It's basically whenever he feels like he's ready. And the example that I keep discussing on the show is looking at the Max Pacioretty situation that happened in Carolina, where hard to say whether he came back earlier than he was supposed to, but he did re-injure that same Achilles that he had. He got injured after Duclair, but then came back before Duclair. So, and this, I believe Duclair's injury to his Achilles happened on July 2nd. I believe that's the exact date. And now we're in February. So 7 months later, usually around the timeline of when an Achilles would heal. So I think the Panthers are kind of seeing Duclair as the trade deadline acquisition. And the thing is for the Panthers is it's gonna come down to really the 11th hour when it comes to the trade deadline, because there's still 10 games left before the trade deadline around there. March 3rd is the day, and we don't know whether they're going to be in buyer mode or sell mode. One thing we know is that they need to start trading they should start trading for penalty killers, because they have one of the worst units in the NHL. Even in the month that they finished about a 650 points percentage, which basically kind of saved their season, especially when Sergei Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight both went down with injury and had Alex Lyon playing 6 straight games. Calder Trophy champion Alex Lyon, who basically saved the Panthers' season in that stretch. But you're gonna. It really just depends on what these next few games are going to look like for the Panthers. Whether they should sell some of their expiring contracts, like an Eric Staal, Mark Staal, Radko Gudas, as well, or to try to get some assets back to make something an even bigger move. And both the Sams have been kind of in trade rumors as well, but both of them have just, especially Bennett recently, put on a line with Matthew Tkachuk. He's been performing so much better recently with that and Carter Verhaeghe as well. And Sam Reinhart is part of that top line with Alexander Barkov and Anton Lundell. So is it something that Bill Zito wants to mess with? Right now the Panthers are playing their best stretch that they've had this season, and they still haven't had a 3-game winning streak this season. A win on Thursday could very well do that, but I don't want to guarantee anything.
The Sharks also looking for a 3-game winning streak right now after beating the Penguins and beating the Mighty Lightning here in back-to-back games. Granted, there was a 10 games break or 10-day break between there, but yes, both teams looking for a 3-game winning streak here. So you mentioned a penalty killer. The Sharks, of course, are going to be sellers at the deadline. May I offer you one slightly used Nick Bonino as a potential penalty killer for the Panthers if you're trying to add your penalty to your penalty kill. But what do you think has been the big reason for? You have to say this season's a bit disappointing, right? Especially what we saw from the Panthers last year. What do you think is kind of the reason why this team hasn't been among one of the top teams in the East?
Well, of course, penalty killing is number one, and not having an extended stretch of good goaltending. And we've seen Sergei Bobrovsky perform pretty poorly in the first 2 months of the season, but he's turned it on in the last since December 1st. And then once he got it together in December and then early January, then he goes down. And we mentioned Alex Lyon earlier, but hey, Sergei Bobrovsky keeps the Panthers in their game again early against the Tampa Bay Lightning right before they blow the doors open against them on Monday night. So it's been that as well. And as far as, and even early on, the power play for the Panthers is average now somewhere in the top 10, but really early in the season, they were losing to teams that they shouldn't have lost to on the road against Arizona, Philadelphia, Chicago. They almost blew their game against the San Jose Sharks the first go round too, which they blew a 2-goal lead before Sam Reinhart scored the shootout winner. And at that time, when Sam Reinhart scored that shootout winner, he hadn't had a goal at all in the season, and he was having a hard time with gaining his confidence. And that was actually the turning point at that time to Sam Reinhart's season, even though it was in November. So that the Panthers weren't getting the timely scoring, but now the Panthers just offensively are just firing on all cylinders. It was just, and the expected numbers, the Panthers are up there in expected goals, but they weren't manifesting itself on the ice. But now we're starting to see the law of averages coming together for the Panthers. So, those models have their purposes. So that's why, so even though I don't always refer to those models, we can see how they manifest itself over now we're at 54 games for the Panthers. So now we're starting to see the law of averages for this team.
All right. Before we got to get into the keys to this game and discuss kind of how we see this game going and what the kind of road to victory for each team. I do want to let you guys know about our friends over at Built Bar. If you guys know about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. And if you're like me, maybe you had a little too much fun this holidays, you got to try to kind of maybe work off some of that weight, but you still want to have that delicious snack everywhere. That's where Built Bar is the best way to go. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. But great thing about them is they only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And if you don't like waiting around like me, I hate waiting for mail. Now you can just go over Walmart. You go grab a box. Go over to Sam's Club. They have them as well. But at Walmart, you get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. Or if you live close to Sam's Club, you get a big 13-bar box with flavors like brownie, batter, and churro. Or make sure you check out Built.com where they have new flavors. Or if you don't know which one is your favorite, check out the assortment pack where they come with a bunch of different ones so you can find out which one is your next favorite. So make sure you guys are checking out Built Bar at either Walmart, Sam's Club, or at Built.com.
Third and final segment here on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On San Jose Sharks podcast. And before we go to the keys of the game, I find it so ironic, JD, that Matt Benning's only goal of the season, brother of Mike Benning, came against the Panthers. How ironic is that?
It's weird how things like that happen a lot. It feels like stuff like that. Benning's going to score tonight, right? That's like a guarantee.
I bet he could send maybe a text message to his brother. He's like, "Hey, did you see that again?
Yeah.
I hope I play the Panthers every single night." So because he gets to score. It's funny because going back to the Panthers a little bit, Patrick Hornquist was on LTIR. And he's been there since December 3rd, which happened to be his second concussion of the season. The first one actually came against the San Jose Sharks, where Luke Cunnin got a 5-minute major and a game misconduct. And then the second one came against Seattle, where he hasn't seen the ice since. So he's the odd man out when it comes to LTIR and not being able to be activated for the Panthers. That's something worth mentioning on the show. And now let's get to the keys of the game for the Panthers. It's crazy because even though the San Jose Sharks give up a lot of goals,
they score a lot.
It's still crazy how their penalty kill is still very strong. And it's been like that for even last season too. So that's one thing that the San Jose Sharks are that is very encouraging for them. And we even spoke about last time about 5-on-5 scoring. It's been the Erik Karlsson show and the Timo Meier show for the Sharks. And the thing is, for the Panthers, continue that red hot power play. They finished first in the month of January in power play percentage, even though they were third worst in PK percentage. You still gotta find a way to just continue getting on the power play, and even in their 7-1 victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning, which still feels very great to say, they got a power play goal at the very end, and they continued that great power play percentage that they have had in the last few months. And an injury update for Sasha Barkov is he skated before practice, but he didn't skate with the group. But he is still expected to play. Game time decision. He's going to take a skate, and then we'll see about his game status. He did take a shot to the hand, and he missed the rest of the game on Tuesday against Tampa Bay. So that's a little bit of an injury update for the captain, Sasha Barkov. So keys to the game for San Jose.
Well, you mentioned the penalty kill for the Sharks, where it has been good, but you have been seeing kind of cracks in the foundation recently. And, they were kind of first or second for a majority of the year. And then kind of in December, we've seen it started to crack. And they played pretty well against the Lightning. They gave up a ton of power play opportunities. I think the Lightning were on the power play 6 times. They did give up a power play goal in the first period to the Lightning, but they were able to kind of rebound the rest of that game. But as we're seeing, the Sharks are starting to kind of trade off some of these pieces, right? You trade off Matt Nieto, known for his penalty kill prowess. You trade off Jacob Megna, one of the Sharks' big defensive penalty killers. Like, you're starting to kind of see pieces getting pulled out, and the old damage check Jenga piece, right? Which one is that one piece before the whole tower falls? And you're starting to see with the tower, the PK tower is getting a little wobbly here. So that definitely worries me, where against such a good and potent Panthers power play, if the Sharks lose the 5-on, or if the Sharks loses the special teams battle here, I don't feel good about their chances against the Panthers in this game. I think, though, for the Sharks, like you said, it's the Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier show, and they have, Timo Meier's already at 30 goals. I talked about in yesterday's episode, he is well on his way to kind of, if he finishes the season with San Jose, he's well on his way to entering one of the kind of historically best seasons in Sharks territory, or in Sharks, franchise history. 30 goals right now. If he gets 40, that would be the fifth time in franchise history where the Sharks have had a 40 goal scorer. And even Erik Karlsson, like, he is 14 points away from breaking Brent Burns' franchise record for defenseman at 83 points. We still have 30 games left. Like, what he's doing right now is insane. It's like we might see a 100-point defenseman for the first time since 92, 93. Like, it's been 30 years. It's been 30 years. Armando, I don't think you were, you weren't when Brian Leach did that, huh, buddy? You were.
I was almost born. So I'm 29. So
okay, you're close. So
close enough.
So yes, they are the keys, right? If those guys step on the ice and they are the best players on the ice, which we have seen many nights. Doesn't matter who else is on the ice. If those guys step on the ice and just like, we're going to be the best players tonight, the Sharks have a chance. But again, the PK really worries me against the Panthers, and we'll see in goal. Capo Kakinen has strung together a couple of good games here against the Penguins, and then against the Lightning on Monday or Tuesday, whatever. Can he do it again? That's what's always been with Capo Kakinen. Okay, let's see that third one, and then that's where things usually go off the rails.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that the Panthers and the Sharks are very similar, a similarity is the way their schedule is. Right now, the Panthers have played a majority of road games this season, where the next few weeks to next month is mostly home heavy. And looking at the Sharks, oh my goodness, the last 3 weeks, you have a long road trip, All-Star break, and then this 3-game road trip, which finishes off in Washington on Super Bowl Sunday. And then it's home heavy for the Sharks too. So the Sharks
are actually worse at home than they are on the road. Their record at home is abysmal this year. It's like one of the worst. It's insane how bad they are at home. No idea why, but they've actually been a better road team than they have been a home team this year. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Vegas is the same way.
Yeah,
where Vegas performs so much better on the road than they do at home. So it's kind of strange how that works. I mean, it's also a great time for team bonding, especially for a very young team in San Jose, and a little bit of
they're not even young.
Not young, but like
they're not even young. They're just like have like one rookie on the team right now. It's Nick Cicek, and actually no, Cicek's not even on the team right now. They have no rookies playing right now. That's the crazy thing about this season. That's what drives me nuts a little bit. I'm going to go on a rant here. You're going the Sharks are losing. They're going to be a top five draft pick this year, but none of the rookies are playing. This is just all veterans. So you're not even getting the rookie experience. Okay, let's let these young guys play and kind of figure it out. No, we still got to go through that part of the rebuild of let's let the young guys play and figure it out. So God, I hope Connor Bedard's worth it.
yeah. So I'm looking again at their home record, 5-12-7, while on the road it's 11-13 and 4 for San Jose. So it's night and day for this team that's consistently traveling. But hey, a lot of home games coming up. But before we wrap up this show, of course, we spoke about how they wrap up their road trip against the Washington Capitals on Super Bowl Sunday, and this will be a good time to talk about the big game on Sunday. Let's spend a few minutes talking about that. Who do you have on Sunday between the Eagles and the Chiefs?
My heart says Eagles because my mom's like a diehard Eagles fan. But I think Patrick Mahomes is just too good. So Patrick Mahomes is really good. And I know it'll be interesting to see how his ankle has like healed up in the past couple weeks since the last time we saw him. But that Eagles pass rush is insane. And if Mahomes is like, I mean, what percentage of Mahomes do you feel good about? If it's like 80% Mahomes, do you feel good? Like 75% Mahomes, do you feel good? Like, where's the like line where you're like, yeah, I feel like this percent Mahomes is good enough to kind of overcome that. But yeah, if the Eagles road to victory is, I think their defensive line just dominates this game, and then with the way that their offense can play so many styles, right? If you want to run the ball 50 times, the Eagles can run the ball 50 times. If they want to sling around the yard, they can do that as well. But I just think Mahomes is just so good that he can kind of overcome whatever the Eagles throw at him. So I'm going to say Chiefs 27, Eagles 24.
I also have the Chiefs, but man, games are won and lost in the trenches.
I know you hear that. Yes. We saw it against Mahomes against the Bucs a couple of years ago with the same exact thing where it's like, yeah, Mahomes is really good, but when he's scrambling for his life back there. Yeah.
That's what was happening just two years ago in the Super Bowl. So, but I feel that I feel that so many Jalen Hurts has so many great things built around him, and hey, if you can build around a cheap quarterback contract as well, then by all means, AJ Brown is one of them as well, and they spend cheap on running backs. So it's a very expendable position. So if you're the Dolphins, don't spend big on a running back, please, for the love of God. so it just goes to show that you can get by with that. But once again, I think I do think that Patrick Mahomes is going to find a way to win his second championship, and even with that high cap hit of his in Kansas City, he's going to show that he is right now the best quarterback in the NFL if he isn't already there already. So
he's the best quarterback.
Yeah.
I think he proved it this playoffs right now. I mean, the way he's playing, especially with the ankle sprain, and I mean, Josh Allen pooped his pants, and Joe Burrow had a chance. If Joe Burrow could have, if they come down and they had two chances to go down and score, and they weren't able to. So yeah, I think Mahomes right now he's got the belt. So until someone takes it away from Mahomes, yeah.
And great news about Josh Allen is his new contract kicks in next year. So some of the Bills won't be able to pay their other guys. So that's good news for Miami, that's for sure. But JD, I want to thank you so much for jumping on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Sharks. Tell everybody where they can find you online.
You can, of course, find me on Twitter at MyFryHole. You can find the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Of course, listen wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and watch on YouTube as well. I know you guys don't have draft picks, but if you like draft coverage, Locked On Sharks is the place to go for draft coverage. We have right now, between now and the draft, we have at least one draft profile a week where we deep dive into a top prospect, learn more about them, all that fun stuff. So I think it's one of the best things I do is my draft profile. So
definitely fun for a team in transition as you're trying to see the building blocks.
You have to think about the future, or else you're going to go crazy.
Absolutely. But for people on the Sharks feed, you can find me on Twitter at Monoman12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers, and follow the show on YouTube as the Panthers are fighting for their playoff lives. So make sure to
we didn't even pick who's winning this game.
I'm gonna say the Panthers 3-1 in this one, and they'll find a way to get their first 3-game winning streak of the season.
I got the Panthers too. I got 4-2. It's the Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier have 2 points each, but the Sharks continue to lose. So yes, that's my prediction as well. So,
and there are the picks for this show, and hopefully I'm not old takes exposed if the Panthers don't win and don't get their 3-game winning streak finally. But JD, thank you so much, and I will see you next time, my friend.
bye, friends.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects with Heidi Halakash. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski brings you a 20-minute or less podcast on the entirety of the sports scene with exclusive interviews and the take of the day. Follow Locked On Sports Today on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Sorry, Armando Velez with JD Young. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.